Buongiorno studenti! Today I'm going to share with you one simple tip that will fix the most common mistake English speakers make with verb essere in Italian. Now, this is one of the very first verbs that you learn when starting your Italian learning journey, and yet students usually don't realize this key aspect of using essere in real sentences. So I hear this mistake even from intermediate or more advanced students, as they often consider it a beginner topic and overlook it. But as you know, I am committed to making Italian grammar easy and actionable, both for those of you who are just starting out and for those who want to polish their Italian and sound more natural. So in both cases, this lesson is for you. And at the end of the video, let me know in the comments, have you been making this essere mistake? I always love to read about your experience. Ok, iniziamo. Let's begin. Now, here's the tip that will change your Italian. After the verb essere, whatever comes next must agree with the subject of the sentence in gender and in number. And now I can see you looking at me like, Valentina, what does that mean? You're right. So I'm going to make it super simple. It means that the very next word after the verb essere needs to match the subject. So who is doing the action, whether it's masculine or feminine, singular or plural. Now, this is completely different from English, where you would say, I am ready, whether you're male or female, or if you're one, or if you're many, like we are ready. So I am ready, if it's me, if it's a man, or if it's we are ready, the word ready stays the same. But in Italian, the word ready must change. That's what we're talking about. For example, if you want to say, I am ready, and that's for me, I will need to say, so the word for ready is pronto in Italian. I will need to say, sono pronta. Let's do this super simple for those of you who are super beginner. Io sono pronta. I am ready. Why am I saying pronta and not pronto? Because I am a woman. I am the subject. I am the one who says I am. So I will need to say pronta because I'm a female. If I want to say he is ready, and that's male, so I will say lui è pronto. If I want to say we are ready, I have to remember these two. I'm using essere, so the next word, which is pronto, will need to change to match the gender, maschile o femminile, and the number, singolare or plurale, single plural of the subject. In this case, the subject is noi. So we will say, noi siamo pronti. I'm using the masculine plural form because when there's more than one, if at least one is male, person or object, we will use the plural masculine for that. So can you notice how pronto is changing all the time? Pronta, pronto, pronti, whereas in English it's always ready, doesn't change. That's what I meant at the beginning of this lesson. That's what I call the magical power of essere. And I made up this phrase just because, mostly because it makes students laugh every time I say the magical power of essere, il magico potere di essere. And usually when something makes you laugh, it sticks more in your memory. It's easier to remember. So I hope this is going to work for you. Remember, il magico potere di essere. It changes everything that comes right after it. So whenever you have a word after essere, you will need to change its ending to match the gender and number of the subject. And this is a unique feature of essere that doesn't apply to any other verb. So now that we have the foundational rule, I want to show you some practical applications that might trick you, and so this will become more and more easy to understand and use. Andiamo. So now I'm listing these examples from the easier ones to the more difficult ones. So make sure to still till the end, especially if you're not a total beginner, because there will be a few cases that usually trick more advanced students from my experience. Okay, caso numero uno, case number one. This applies to when you use essere to describe something or someone. Let's suppose you want to say Marco is tired. Does this rule apply? Of course it does, because we are using essere, so the next word will need to change. How do we say tired in Italian? That's stanco. Marco is masculine singular because he's one, so we say Marco è stanco. Marco è stanco. Here stanco didn't change because Marco is one, singular, and male, maschile. But if you want to say Anna is tired, how would you say that? Anna è stanca. So I'm using è, is, and therefore the next word changes to match Anna, which is still one, singular, but is a female, so it's stanca. If we want to say the books are new, how would you say that? Come si dice new in italiano? Nuovo. So how would you say the books are new? I libri sono nuovi. I'm using the plural masculine ending. How would you say houses are beautiful? So let's start with how do you say beautiful in Italian? That's bello. But we're talking about houses, which is case, le case. So le case sono belle, because belle is the feminine plural version of bello. Now, this is just the first case, and we're going to see more, but I want to remind you that all the phrases and examples we're seeing today, all the translations in English, and all the explanation giving you will be in the PDF that I prepared to review this lesson. Italian grammar is pretty complex and takes time to sink, and that's totally normal. So if you want to review this lesson, which I highly recommend, you can rewatch this video, of course, but I would recommend you also print your PDF and use it as a quick reference whenever you want to refresh this concept and review the examples. Ok, andiamo avanti. Let's move on. This rule applies to when you talk about, for example, nationalities. So don't forget this applies to nationalities too, because those are features, characteristics, and words that come after essere. So, for example, you say, I am Italian. If you're a man, you would say, Io sono italiano. But if you're a woman, you need to change that. So that will be Io sono italiana. So when you're talking about your nationality, please remember to change the ending if you are a man or if you're a woman, because if you're a man, that stays the same. Italiano stays italiano. But per esempio, io sono americana, io sono spagnola, and so forth. Ok. Caso numero 3. When you talk about professions, these are practical applications. When you talk about your profession, you say, I am whatever. So you need to use essere. So if you're using essere, you need to remember the magical power of essere. You need to change the very next word. Now, this can be trickier as nouns for professions are often irregular. So you need to learn the feminine version. I'm going to show you a few as an example. Let's suppose you want to say he is the secretary. That would be lui è il segretario, because it's lui. But if you want to say she is the secretary, will you need to change that? Certo, of course. Lei è la segretaria. We're changing it because it follows essere. If you want to say he is a doctor, you will need to use the masculine form. So, lui è un dottore. But if you want to say she is a doctor, see in English you still say she is a doctor, the same word. In Italian, you need the female form, the feminine form of that noun, which is dottoressa. So dottore is a male doctor, dottoressa is a female doctor. Lei è una dottoressa. Oops, due T. Due T e due S, two T's and two S's. Lei è una dottoressa. Okay, so remember, even when you talk about professions, you need to remember to change the next word, the word that comes immediately after essere, to match the gender of the person you're talking about. Okay, now let's get into the tricky part, which is using essere with other tenses. This is where students, more advanced students, make the most mistakes. What I want you to remember, this rule I'm explaining to you, of course, applies to essere using present tense. So, io sono, tu sei, lui è, noi siamo, etc. But this applies to essere used in any other tense. Whatever tense you're using essere in, you will need to use this. Now, if you're a total beginner, this maybe doesn't make much sense yet. Non ti preoccupare, don't worry. Just take this information. But if you're not a total beginner, please, please, please pay attention to this, because I see this mistake with a lot with more advanced students. So, let's suppose you want to say Marco went to Rome. We went is è andato, and Marco is a male. So we say Marco è andato. Here we're using essere as a helper verb, as an auxiliary verb to form the past tense, the passato prossimo tense. Nevertheless, you still need to follow this rule. So if it's Marco è, the very next word after essere is andato. And this is good because Marco is one and it's masculine. So Marco è andato a Roma. What happens if I want to say Anna went to Rome? We're using essere as an auxiliary verb, and still the magical rule, the magical power of essere applies, because I need to say Anna è andata. Anna è andata. Don't say Anna è andato, but it's Anna è andata. We have essere, the next word needs to change. Anna è andata a Roma. Okay, let's see this with more tenses, because maybe you don't believe me and you're like, oh, no, I don't think this is the same all the time. No, this is the same all the time. It always changes. Allora, let's suppose you want to say, I was calm. In this context, we'll probably use imperfetto tense. So, io ero, I was. If it's a male, that will be io ero calmo. But if we need to say that, for example, for them, so a group of people, they were calm, and that group is made of all female, how would you say that? Loro erano calme. Don't say loro erano calmo. Can you hear now? It doesn't sound right. Loro erano calme. Okay, one more example, like a couple examples to show you the same point. Let's suppose we want to use this with conditional, present conditional. So let's suppose you want to say, he would be perfect for this job. How would we say that? Lui sarebbe perfetto, he would be perfect, per questo. Per questo lavoro. Lui sarebbe perfetto per questo lavoro. Here we still have essere, but in the form of present conditional. He would be. Lui sarebbe. He would be. And the next word is perfetto, which doesn't look like it's changing, but that's because lui is masculine singular. What if we want to say she would be perfect for this job? Lei sarebbe, she would be, perfetta, perfetta per questo lavoro. See, we have another form of essere, which is a different tense, a different conjugation, present conditional. The verb stays the same, lui sarebbe, lei sarebbe, but the very next word after essere needs to change to match the subject. If the subject is lei, that's singular feminine, so you need to use perfetta as the ending. So here's my quick check to never make this mistake again. Whenever you use essere, il verbo essere, whatever tense you're using it in, presente, passato, condizionale, whatever it is, it doesn't matter, always ask yourself, who is the subject? So who is the person before the is to be verb? Is it masculine or is it feminine? Is it singular or is it plural? Always ask these questions to yourself and then change the ending of the word right after essere to match that subject. And please remember, this applies whether you're using adjectives, nationalities, professions, and it works with all tenses. Okay, there you have it. Just one simple rule that will take your Italian to the next level. Now it's your turn to practice. Pick one example from today's lesson and write your own sentence in the comments. And then let me know, have you been making this essere mistake? I always love to hear from you. E noi ci vediamo al prossimo video. See you in the next video. Ciao ciao da Valentina.